Shalom, Israel. This is Bishop Nathaniel. I want you to know that you can view all our Sabbath classes live on IUIC TV. That's right, I said on IUIC TV. Download the app today. Shalom.
Shalom, family. Most High in Christ bless you all. Those that are listening in, Most High in Christ bless you all. Happy Sabbath. Today's class is Romans 11. I'm going over Romans 11 because, I don't know, maybe about a month or two ago I said I was going to go through it. And Captain Jan has been harassing me every week to go through it. So, Captain Jan, here you go. All right. All right, let's begin in Romans 11. Now, for the men sitting here, who hasn't read Romans 11? So everybody's read Romans 11, right? Thank you, sis. Yes, I need you guys to interact with me. Micah, what's happening? Most High in Christ bless. All right, so everybody's read. Okay, let's go. Romans 11 and 1.
The book of Romans, chapter 11 and verse 1. I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin.
Ooh, let's go back. Let's go back one chapter a little bit. If I read this whole chapter. Okay, I'm going to read chapter 10. We're going to read the whole of 10, before, but I'm not going to explain it. Well, I am going to explain it at the end, but I don't want to go through each precept because it's just going to go too far into the class. All right? So let's start with Romans 10 and 1.
The book of Romans, chapter 10 and verse 1.
Now, these are the Jews that were in the church in Rome. All right? Real quick, go to Acts 18 first and 1. That's correct? Acts 18, right?
The book of Acts, chapter 18 and verse 1. After these things, Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth and found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy, with his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded that all Jews to depart from Rome.
So this is Claudius Caesar. Now, I'm going to take a sidebar for myself. When I first came into this truth, before I came into truth, what interested me about the Bible was this was one of the scriptures, because I knew Roman history. I was a big history buff growing up. And when I saw that, I said, this Claudius Caesar that I'm talking about, they talking about in the Bible, that's what piqued my interest. That this became a reference point for me to use it in history. So during the time of Claudius Caesar, there was a persecution against the Jews, against the Israelites. They were actually dipping us in tar and lighting us on fires and using us as lampposts to light the way into the city. I'll tell you, the persecution against us, and it was against the believing Israelites. And when I say believing, I'm talking about those that believed on Christ. I hate to use the word Christians because they were called Christians, but we ain't talking about Christianity Christians. We're talking about the real Christians. We are the true Christians, the believers on Christ. Anyway, they used them like that. So the persecution was so bad that Claudius ended up burning down a big part of the city and blamed it on the Jews. And that's why they had to flee out of the city, because they were killing us in numbers. All right? So let's go back.
The book of Romans, chapter 10 and verse 1. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge.
So this is Paul writing to the church that was in Rome. Read on.
For they being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God.
So they had a zeal, but not according to God, not according to the scriptures. They went about to establish their own righteousness, and they had to submit to the righteousness of God. Read on.
For Christ is the end of the law of righteousness to everyone that believeth.
Then he came back and said, for Christ is the end of the law for righteousness. The end of the law is the end of the sacrificial law. With Christ came the end of sacrificing. Read.
For Moses...
No, read 4 again.
Verse 4. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth. For Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth those things shall live by them.
So now, the law is talking about the law of sacrifice. Later on, I'm going to go through precepts explaining that. I just kind of want to get through this. So Paul is writing to the church of Rome, and he's speaking about the Jews that had a zeal for God, but not really according to knowledge. Can you name one Jew that had a zeal for God, but it wasn't according to knowledge? Anybody? Back then. Paul was one of them. He had a zeal. He was a Pharisee of the Pharisees, but it wasn't according to knowledge. There was something he was missing, which was Christ. He didn't fully understand it, even though he knew all the precepts on him. It wasn't like Paul didn't learn the law. Christ said, lo, I'm in the volume of the book. It is written of me. So as he learned the law, he was learning Christ, but it wasn't revealed to him. It wasn't until he was on the road to Damascus that Christ came and opened up his understanding that when you read those scriptures, you're reading about me. When you read Isaiah 53, that's me. Deuteronomy 16, that's me. Psalm, that's me. When David said, Lord, to my Lord, that was talking about me. And then it snapped in his mind. Oh, all right now, I understood. That's why when that conversion happened, it said he didn't confer with no man. He surely went and started preaching the gospel because he already knew the laws. So he had that zeal, but not according to knowledge. Right? Read on.
Verse 5. For Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth those things shall live by them. But the righteousness which is of faith speaketh on this wise. Say not in thine heart, who shall ascend into heaven? That is to bring Christ down from above. Or who shall descend into the deep? That is to bring up Christ again from the dead. But what saith it? The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart, that this, the word of faith which we preach.
Stop right there. So when it says in verse 6, so I'm doing exactly what I didn't want to do. But the righteousness which is of faith speaketh on this wise. Say not in thine heart, who shall ascend to heaven? That it is to bring Christ down from above. Or who shall descend into the deep? That is to bring Christ up from the dead. Who knows what that's trying to say? What is Paul trying to explain right there? Anybody want to give it a shot? Well, I guess I'll just explain. Oh, yeah, I would. All right, there you go. Go ahead, Nechemiah. So before you explain, stand up. Before you explain, I'm going to read it again slowly. From verse 4. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth. For Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth those things shall live by them. So the man that keeps the sacrificial law, that he got to live by them, right? Verse 6. But, when you read that word but is going to negate what we just read. All right? Okay, now that I said that, now read it, Kani, and then I want you to explain it.
Verse 6. But the righteousness which is of faith speaketh on this wise. Say not in thine heart, who shall ascend into heaven? That is to bring Christ down from above. Or who shall descend into the deep? That is to bring up Christ again from the dead.
Okay. I mean, this is going right in line with Deuteronomy chapter 30, 11 through 14. It's saying the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Get it?
Yes, sir.
Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 11. For this commandment which I command thee this day, it is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, that shouldest say, who shall go up for us to heaven and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea, that thou shouldest say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it? But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it.
So these laws were given, this was natural to us. It should have been no issue with us keeping the law, statutes, and the commandments. It's not like it was far from us because, I mean, before we even came down here in 2nd Ezra 9:18, we agreed to come down here and teach the laws.
Okay, stay right there. So, okay, good, very good. Now watch this. I'm going to say something real quick. What verse is that? Verse 5. Read that of 10 and 5.
11 and 5?
I mean 11 and 5. I'm sorry.
Romans.
No, 10 and 5.
Okay. Oh, Romans chapter 10, verse 5, yes. Verse 5. For Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law.
That's the sacrificial law, right? Read on.
That the man which doeth those things shall live by them.
If you do the sacrificial law, you got to live by them. All the tenets of it, right? Read on.
But the righteousness which is of faith speaketh on this wise.
But this righteousness is of faith, which is Christ, speaks on this wise. Read on.
Say not in thine heart, who shall ascend into heaven? That is, to bring Christ down from above.
What is that trying to say? So what you said was right, but I want you to say, when it says, who shall ascend into heaven? What is he trying to say? Let me just explain it so I can move on. It's not going to come from man. Because the priest held up like they were the keys to bring you to the kingdom of heaven. They were the way that you need. He said, no, this is not how it's going to go. It's not by man, because that's why they held on to the sacrificial law. That's why we were afraid to leave away from the sacrificial law, because leaving away from it meant we left the temple. They wasn't accepting us, and then we felt like we had no connection. No. Who's going to be the man to bring? No man is going to bring. It's going to be a spirit that's going to be put upon you to understand, like those that were, as we read on, you're going to see those men there. Some of them kept the laws, like you said, some of them kept the laws naturally. Not all of them that were scattered were all sinners in a sense of not having some type of morality. Some of them instinctively knew not to be gay. Okay, very good. Let's read on.
Verse 6. But the righteousness which is of faith speaketh on this wise. Say not in thine heart, who shall ascend into heaven? That is, to bring Christ down from above. Or who shall descend into the deep? That is, to bring up Christ again from the dead. But what saith it? The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. That is, the word of faith which we preach.
He says, this was preached to you, understood it. So don't get fooled. Don't let no man think he's going to bring him to you. No. It's there. The word is being preached. It's nigh in you. That's why he says, my sheep will what? It's going to click. It's going to make sense. Read on.
Verse 9, that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. Mm-hmm. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation.
Read.
For the scripture saith, whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. For there is no difference between Jew and the Greek.
Now here he comes back. He says, listen, for there's no difference between Jew and Greek. Don't think it's going to be by a man. There's no difference between Jew and Greek. The Greek is talking about the scattered Israelites. Another class of the time, they were called Gentiles. In the time of the Maccabees, we were Hellenized. That's why it says Greek. And this is one scripture that churches forever get caught up in, thinking all nations are going to be saved. Bishop made a point last week in the class. He said, if that means that there's no difference between Jew and Greek, where do you fit in that? Because you don't call yourself a Jew, and you're not a Greek. So that means salvation isn't for you then. When he said that, I said, that's a good point. Okay, let's read on.
Verse 12, for there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek, for the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. How then shall they call on him?
Whosoever of the Jews and the Greeks shall call on the name of the Lord, the same shall be saved. That's why he said in Romans 2, verse 11.
Romans chapter 2, verse 11. Romans chapter 2, verse 11. For there is no respect of persons with God.
There's no respect of person with God, Jew or Greek. Some are going to die with the law. Some are going to die outside of the law. But whosoever calleth on the name of the Lord, that one, Jew or Greek, can be saved. Read on.
Romans chapter 11, verse 14. How then shall they call on him? Let me read it again. How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things.
The gospel of peace was a gospel to bring northern and southern kingdom back together. That's the gospel of peace, because, and that gospel is Christ. Because the Old Testament sacrificial law would have always kept us divided, because they moved away from God. They didn't circumcise on the 8th day. There was no hope for you then. You didn't come back 3 times a year. There was no chance for you then. You didn't even know, some of them didn't even know their lineage's lines. How was you going to be brought back into the fold? So that gospel of peace was Christ coming back, you hearing the word if you were scattered, and you repented. You know who that is for today? That's all of us. Well, not you, Kani, but everybody else who came to this truth in their life, meaning you lived as a Gentile first. Certainly I wasn't looking for it. It wasn't like I was studied. There's something that I read, something that was said that clicked here and made me consider. And that's the story for all of us here. So some of you young ones who was born in the truth. Read on.
Verse 15. And how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah saith, Lord, who hath believed our report? So then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God.
Read.
But I say, have they not heard? Yes, verily. Their sound went into all the earth, and their words unto the ends of the world.
They got preached to all nations. Read on. That's Matthew 28. Read on.
But I say, did not Israel know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them which are no people, and by a foolish nation will I anger you.
So look what he says. But I say, did not Israel know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation will I anger you. Who was God wanting to anger? Right there, young man.
Shalom, Bishop.
Shalom.
He wanted to anger those that knew the law, the Pharisees, Sadducees, and the Jews.
Okay, southern kingdom. But why? Why did he want to anger them?
Because they understood that keeping the law of sacrifice, like you said, was of man. And they wanted to keep that. And so by telling them about Christ, that would anger them and bringing this northern kingdom back into the
Second part of what you said
sir.
is right.
Understood.
First part is not right. Why did God want to anger them? Anybody else? Why did God, read that again, can I?
Verse 19. But I say, did not Israel know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation will I anger you.
Okay, so the question is, why did God want to anger the southern kingdom?
Shalom, Bishop. He wanted to anger the southern kingdom because he had already cast northern kingdom away. So by bringing them back in, he wanted them to provoke them back to doing the commandments as well.
Very good. He wanted to anger the southern kingdom. Genesis 49. Very good. That's the answer. Genesis 49 and 10.
Genesis chapter 49, verse 10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet.
So who's the lawgiver? Judah was the lawgiver. Judah, I was talking to Kani earlier. Judah was the city that everybody wanted to come down to. Everybody looked to Judah. All the other tribes, we all look forward to 3 times a year coming down to Jerusalem, to the city of David. It was the epicenter of the earth. God chose to put his temple, put his spirit there in that city to be the lawgiver. But yes, they did not want to keep the commandments. So God said, I'm going to get a people that I don't even consider people, and I'm going to use them, and they're going to anger you. So I'm going to put my spirit upon them. And those people was the northern kingdom. Let's go back to that. Let's go back to Romans, then we're going to get Hosea.
Romans chapter 10 and verse 19. But I say, did not Israel know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation will I anger you. But Isaiah is very bold.
No, so let's get that real quick. In the book of Hosea, where he says that. They're not a people. Hosea 1, I think it is. Like verse 10, 11, something like that.
Hosea chapter 1 and verse 10. Yet the number of the children of, verse 9. Verse 9. Then said God, call his name Loami, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your God.
So you hear what God said to Northern Kingdom? He says, because of their sins, he said, you are no longer my people, and I'm not your God. These were the people. Imagine when the Jews or Southern Kingdom heard that, they was like, damn, God cut them off. He said he ain't their God, and he ain't their God, and they ain't his people. Now they are Gentiles to us, heathens. We didn't want no dealings with them. Then you turn around and hear that these people now got the Holy Spirit upon them. It angered Judah. Like, damn, how do people got the Holy Spirit? We here been sacrificing. These dudes is wearing togas. They say they believe on this man they call Jesus. Now they got the Holy Spirit. How the hell they got it? It was already planned. God said, I'm going to anger you with a people that I don't even consider people. I'm going to put my spirit upon them. Now, read on. Let's finish this prophecy.
You want Hosea?
Yeah, Hosea. I want to finish it.
Hosea chapter 1 and verse 9.
10.
Verse 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered nor measured. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God.
See now, a person like Paul, well, I don't know, I use Paul. I'm going to say a person like Paul who was studied. He understood that God wasn't calling them his people anymore. But there were certain things that they were blinded from too. What they were blinded for was the second part. That was the mystery that's spoken about in Colossians. We'll get it later. That these men could be grafted back in. And that's what we're going to get to in Romans 11 eventually. That they could be grafted in. He says, the people who I don't call a people, he says, in the place where you're not called my people, there you shall be called. So there was going to be a day where they're going to come back. For some reason, God has shut the eyes and darkened their understanding, not to understand the second half of that. That's why Peter, when he had the vision, God explained to him that it was talking about man, not food, and don't call any man common unclean, that I have cleansed. He was binded to that also. But then you had some that did understand. Because they asked him the question in John 7, whither will he go? To disperse amongst the Gentiles, to teach the Gentiles? Some of them understood, but many of them couldn't connect the dots. And that's that blinding. So let's go back to Romans.
Romans chapter 10 and verse 20. But Isaiah is very bold and saith, I was found of them that sought me not. I was made manifest unto them that asked not after me.
See, now these are talking about Northern Kingdom. They wasn't asking after God. He said, the prophet Isaiah. Now, I want you to understand how Paul is writing. Paul is writing this letter to the church of Rome, and now he's giving scriptural references, showing them here that in Hosea, you were called not a people. In the book of Isaiah, get that real quick, 65, he says that God was going to raise a people that was not even calling for him. They were over there worshiping Diana, whatever they was doing. I'm going to tell you something, like I said today. None of us in here was looking for God. Not sincerely. Even if you was in the church, you wasn't looking for the God of this Bible. You was looking for white man, Jesus, whatever you was doing. The Bible wasn't even far from my mind. Somebody told me one time, right before I came to truth, so you know eating pork is a sin? I said, what's a sin? What you mean? Like God is wrong, you can't do it. I said, eating pork? Is in the Bible? They said, yeah. Man, please. I didn't know. What? I didn't know that was a scripture in the Bible. And I took communion. I came from I didn't know. I was an altar boy. Nobody touched me. Don't worry about that. I was an altar boy and everything. And I never knew nothing about you couldn't eat pork. And then they bopped me in the head and said, you can't eat shrimp and crab. Nah, you gotta be joking. Come on, man. What? Nope. You gotta get married before you have sex. Oh Lord, you got come on, damn. Who wanna get married? Who wanna get married? No, you can't. You can't have sex until you're married. Oh, gee, damn. No, sex constitute marriage. I was like, damn, I'm married to a lot of people. Not knowing these scriptures. But in my mind back then, I said I believed in God. But I didn't know the Bible. I didn't have, not even the first, listen, in my 20s, I was dumb as a doorknob. You couldn't tell me nothing until I started learning these scriptures. So let's read this real quick. Read.
Isaiah chapter 65 and verse 1. I am sought of them that ask not for me.
I'm not with you. Go ahead, read again.
You want that?
No, yeah, get Isaiah 65. That's what I wanted.
Isaiah chapter 65 verse 1. I am sought of them that ask not for me. I am found of them that sought me not. I said, behold me, unto a nation that was not called by my name.
That's talking about Northern Kingdom. Read them.
I have spread out my hands all the day unto a rebellious people, which walketh in a way that was not good, after their own thoughts.
That was us. We walked in a way that was not good. He said he sought after rebellious people. Time and time again, God has put things in our lives to bring us unto him. And one day, for all of us, it clicked. And we said, enough of whatever we're doing. Some people never change. And fitted for them is destruction. So let's go back.
Romans chapter 10 and verse 21. But to Israel he saith, all day long have I stretched forth my hand unto a disobedient and gainsaying people. Next one. Read on down. Chapter 11, verse 1. I say then, hath God cast away his people?
Even though, now we're going to get to Romans 11. Even though he continually stretched forth his hand to a disobeying and gainsaying people. I do want to say this about old people. We will argue and try to find any reason on why we don't have to keep the commandments. We don't study the Bible for nothing, but we will open that book and try to Google and find something to discredit. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it whole. You can't cook, shop, and sell on the Sabbath. You can't go play basketball. You always knew Sunday is the first day of the week. Well, how did we know really it was the first day of the week? Because on this calendar, I was Googling this. Negro, you was never looking for that. You can't eat pork. What do you mean? But that was because back then the animals cleaned the streets and it wasn't hell. But through proper immunization and proper feeding, it's a new white meat. We find every reason not to keep the commandments. That's how we are as a people. We are a gainsaying people. We're a rebellious people. But even in all that rebellion, God still chose us. I'm going to tell you, we got a fair deal out of this one. We got a fair deal. Had I been God, nobody had been here. You niggas don't listen. He said, I'm going to be merciful to y'all. Time and time again, the Lord has been merciful to us in all our sins, all our impurities, all our imperfections. even after he explained to us, and we know. I'm talking about in the truth now, know it, God is still merciful to us. All he asks are simple things like, yo, keep my commandments. Believe on my son that he died for you, and just keep my command. That's a fair deal to me. Go join Islam. They want you to strap a bomb to yourself to prove your love to Allah. Join that Hindu. They be taking that thing and busting knives in their backs. Join them. What's the biggest thing we got to do? Fast one day out of the year, you don't eat? That's the biggest thing you got to do. Become a Catholic priest. You can't have sex. You can't have a woman. That stuff ain't hard. It's just, we just wicked. We just a wicked people, man. We do not like to hear the law of the Lord. Watch this real quick. So read 11 and 1.
The book of Romans, chapter 11 and verse 1. I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham of the tribe of Benjamin.
So even with all their disobedience, God has not cast us away. Paul came back and says, for I'm an Israelite of the tribe of Benjamin. Read on.
Verse 2. God hath not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Wot ye not what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed thy prophets, and digged down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men, who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal.
Now look at the example that Paul is given here. He said, God has not forsaken his people. He said, I'm an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. Remember who he's writing this to, the church of Rome. He says, verse 2.
Verse 2. God hath not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Wot ye not what the scripture saith of Elias?
Now he's given a reference of Elijah. This is Elijah. Read on.
How he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged down thine altars. I am left alone, and they seek my life.
Read on.
But what saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal.
He said, even though they're trying to destroy you, he said, I have men reserved. There's always, the whole point I want to get behind it is there is always going to be a remnant of people. That's why this earth is standing today, because there's a remnant of us on this earth. If it wasn't for that, God would destroy this whole place. It's only being held up because of us. He's saying, listen, Elijah, you may not understand, you may not see, but trust, I have a remnant of people. And that's always been the case with God. From the beginning, in destroying the earth, he had a remnant with Noah. When we were in Babylon, when the Nebuchadnezzar was coming to land, there was a remnant in which he let survive to come out of it. In these last days, when he destroys earth, there'll be a remnant again that is going to be the obedient ones that's going to repent from their ways. So read.
Verse 5. Even so then, at this present time also there is a remnant according to the election of grace.
He says, even at this present time, that time, there was a remnant. This time, there's a remnant. Who's the remnant? We are the remnant that's, again, on the earth. Read.
Verse 6. And if by grace, then is it no more of works. Otherwise, grace is no more grace.
So look what he says. And if by grace that the remnant is here, then it is no more of works. Then it's no more of the works they did. The works is talking about the sacrificial law. We're going to go through in a second. If it's of grace, then it's no more sacrificing. Why is he saying it to them? Because they weren't in Jerusalem. They were in Rome. Hey, listen, keep that conversation outside. Take it outside. If it's of works, then it's not of grace. We're here of grace. Read.
Verse 6. And if by grace, then is it no more of works. Otherwise, grace is no more grace.
Saying the same thing, just backwards.
But if it be of works, then is it no more, then it is of, let me read that again. But if it be of works, then is it no more grace? Otherwise, work is no more work.
So let's just explain it. Go to the book of Romans, chapter 9, verse 31 down.
Romans chapter 9 and verse 31. But Israel, which followed after the law of righteousness, hath not attained to the law of righteousness. Wherefore, because they sought it not by faith, but as it were by the works of the law.
So when it says, but Israel, which followed after the law of righteousness, hath not attained unto the law of righteousness. That's what it says again. But Israel, which followed after the law of righteousness. What is the law of righteousness that Israel followed after? The sacrificial law. Why was it called why was it called the law of righteousness? Say it. Go ahead. Come on. Not really. It didn't. But I know what. Okay, same guy, same young man.
It was to bring back, give you redemption
Okay.
at that time.
Okay, very good. It was a shadow or us rehearsing what sacrificing was about. So it was considered the law of righteousness because it was a law. We had to sacrifice, right? But now watch what it says. Read again.
Verse 31. But Israel, which followed after the law of righteousness, hath not attained to the law of righteousness.
But even though they followed the law of righteousness, they never attained unto the law of righteousness. Even though they sacrificed. No, read on. I don't want to say it yet.
Verse 32. Wherefore, because they sought it not by faith.
Stop. They kept the law of righteousness, but they never attained to the law of righteousness because they did not keep it by faith. So what's that second law of righteousness? Christ. And they were never able to attain it because that was by faith. It wasn't going to be by the works of the law. The important thing is he wrote it to the church in Rome because they could never have done that. They were too far away. They wasn't there 3 times a year. They didn't circumcise on the 8th day. They said, if you wasn't circumcised on the 8th day, you can't be saved. I'm 54 now. 8th day been passed. Well, then you don't get the kingdom. So they could never have kept it. So even the Jews that sacrificed, and they had the zeal, but they never really attained unto Christ because it was by faith. And that's where Paul had that problem with himself. That's why Paul said in Galatians, restore such a one in a spirit of meekness, lest thou also be tempted, because Paul was a murderer. Charity is what? Long-suffering. It's kind. Because that's what was shown to him. Because the judgment for him should have been death. And now that he's understand it now his faith kicks in. So read that verse again.
Verse 31. But Israel, which followed after the law of righteousness, hath not attained to the law of righteousness. Wherefore, because they sought it not by faith, but as it were by the works of the law, for they stumbled at that stumbling stone.
What was that stone they stumbled at? Who knows? Give me scripture. Christ being at, right, the young man.
Shalom, Bishop. You got 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 23.
Let's hear it. Get it, Kani?
1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 23. For we preach Christ crucified unto the Jews, a stumbling block, and unto the Greeks foolishness.
Right, okay. All right, you can use that one. That's good. I don't want to take too much time. So now let me ask you a question. Why would he have, so read that verse again in verse 33.
Verse 30, I think we didn't read 33 yet. We were at 32.
Oh, 32, I'm
32.
sorry.
Wherefore, because they sought it not by faith, but as it were by the works of the law, for they stumbled at the stumbling stone.
Read on.
As it is written, behold, I lay in Sion a stumbling stone, a rock of offense, and whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed.
So Christ became that stumbling stone to a lot of our people because they couldn't believe that this man is the Messiah, that this man was going to be the keys to the kingdom of heaven, that this man is sent of God. And that's how I know we the people of this Bible, because it's hard for us to look at another person and see God in him. It's hard for us to look at another brother and say, God has inspired this man to do Who does the nigga think he is? That's how we think as people. That's how we are. He's just a man like us. It's hard. But with Christ, God laid the stumbling stone to now many of those Jews was not going to understand, not believe, not accept. And they stumbled in what? What was they stumbling in? Faith. And faith cometh by what? And hearing come by what? And the word of God is who? If you read in the Bible, you read in Christ. You hold it on. This is all Messiah right here in the written form. His spirit is right here. Lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me. He said, I'm going to send you, John 14, I'm going to send you another comforter, and he will comfort you. He's saying, I'm going to leave, but my message and who I am and what makes me what I am will be recorded. I'm going to put my words in the prophet's mouth and record it, and I'm going to leave it here to comfort you. You know what the comfort for me was when I heard it? He that leadeth to captivity shall go into captivity. When I heard that, I'm not joking. When I heard that for the first time, and if you're close up to see me, you see goose pimples on my arm right now. That warmed my heart. I said, damn it, we get back? And righteously? So you telling me I'm going to drag that cracker? Oh, man, I'm going to keep these commandments. No more, forget no weed, no marijuana, no hoes. I'm going to drag a cracker? Oh, man, I'm keeping these commandments. Oh, God, I'm good. I'm good. You said rod of iron, we're going to split their skulls? If they don't, oh, man, oh, that's good news. Before all, I thought it was like you died and that was it. I didn't know. There was nothing to live for. Damn, it sucks to live in this captivity at the end, don't get nothing for it. I want get back. Am I being petty? I know I'm not. And he'll give me a new body too? Lord Jesus, man. Lord, you good. You good. I am going to drag these niggas. Y'all don't know. I'm methodical, boy. I'm going to wear them. They're going to work with rigor. I'm going to run them. Anyway, I heard that for the first time, and it warmed me. It made me feel good. I loved every bit of it. I can't get enough of that. Dragging them. Okay. What was the last thing we had?
We were in Romans 11 and 7.
No.
Before that, we were in Romans 9. We finished.
Oh, the stumbling block. Yeah, I'm going to go to works. Okay, I forgot. I got distracted. Dead works. Galatians 2. We'll come back to Romans in a second. Galatians 2.
Verse 16.
Mm-hmm.
Galatians chapter 2 and verse 16. Knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ. Even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we may be justified by the faith of Christ, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified.
Okay, jump from that to Hebrews 9 and 14.
The book of Hebrews, chapter 9, verse 14. How much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot.
Hold on 1 second. Is that it?
You're looking for, yeah, we're coming up on it.
Okay, we don't.
Without spot to God, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God.
Okay, let's go a little higher. Start with verse, I don't want to read all of this. Just start from verse 9 and read on down.
Verse 9, Hebrews chapter 9, verse 9, which was a figure for the time then present, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices, that could not make him that did the service perfect, as pertaining to the conscience, which stood only in meats and in drinks and in divers washings, and in carnal ordinances imposed on them until the time of reformation.
To the time of change, those ordinances was imposed upon us. Read on.
But Christ, being come and high priest of good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building,
Right, his body, read on.
neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us.
Read on.
For if the blood of bulls and of goats and the ashes of an heifer sprinkling the unclean sanctifieth to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to God, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God?
And I read it like that so you understand the dead works were the sacrifice. It purged your conscience from dead works. The purge of your conscience that you understood, you grew to understand that you don't need bull and goats. It purged you from that, understanding that that's no longer needed. Christ is the way. And that purging period took some time. It didn't happen today and tomorrow you said you wasn't doing it. Some people had to be fully persuaded over a period of time to understand that Christ is the way. But in a second, I'm going to say something and I'll get to it later. But for those that weren't purged from that and still believe you need to sacrifice, there was a day of reckoning that was going to come. And there was severity for not believing on him, and there was a blessings to others for you not listening or you not believing. It was a blessing to others. We'll get to it in a second. Okay, let's go back to what I had. Give me Hebrews 6. 6 and 1.
Hebrews chapter 6, verse 1. Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, let us go on unto perfection.
Those principal doctrines of Christ is the sacrificial law. It was a schoolmaster that was going to lead us to Christ. We left that off. Read on.
Not laying again the foundation of repentance.
Not laying again the foundations of what?
Repentance.
You was not going to begin to lay the foundation of repentance by what?
From dead works.
From dead works, which was that sacrificial law. We just read about that. Read on.
And of faith toward God.
And your faith towards God. Read on.
Of the doctrine of baptism.
Of the doctrine of baptism. Read on.
And of laying on of hands. And of resurrection of the dead. And of eternal judgment.
Give me that real quick. Hebrews 9 and 10. Of baptism.
Hebrews chapter 9 verse 10. Which stood only in meats and drinks and divers washings and carnal ordinances imposed on them until the time of Reformation.
Those were that was the baptism. It was diverse washings you made before you went into the temple to go offer up sacrifices, right? That was going to be done away with. What's next?
And of laying on of hands.
Leviticus 16:21.
Leviticus chapter 16 verse 21. And Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat and confess over him all the iniquities of the children of Israel.
So that was, again, that's how that's how we went before the Most High, the priest, lay their hand on the goat to pass or channel all the sins of Israel upon that goat. That's the laying on of hands. And what's the next one?
Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 2. And of resurrection of the dead.
And the resurrection of the dead is that we understood. Let's read that real quick. Couple of them. Read Daniel's 12 and 2.
The book of Daniel, chapter 12 and verse 2. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt.
So the reason I read that for us because we understood resurrection. But why was it so important in the statement that he was making in Hebrews? When it says in Hebrews 6 and 1 on down. Read it again.
Hebrews chapter 6 verse 1. Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, let us go unto perfection, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works.
That perfection is going on to Christ. Faith, read on.
And of faith toward God.
And that faith is all faith towards God is proven through our belief that Christ died for our sins. Read on.
Of the doctrine of baptisms, and of laying on of hands, and of resurrection of the dead, and of eternal judgment.
So it wasn't that of the laying on hands or the baptism or the resurrection of dead. And the reason being, I'm explaining the resurrection of dead, because back then, if you were put out of the temple and you had no parts of that, you feel like you had no hope of resurrection because you wasn't there able to sacrifice 3 times a year. If you was excommunicated, they stole your hope in salvation or resurrection. But Christ said, don't worry about that. I'm good. I got the keys to hell and death. He said in Revelations 1. So I'm the one. I control that. Look, I died and I'm back. You don't need that no more. Those are all works that you no longer need to follow. Let's go back to Romans.
Left off in verse 7.
Yes.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 7. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded.
Who is the election? Who's the elect? Anybody? Yeah, what scripture? Let's go to it.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 45 and verse 4. For Jacob my servant's sake, and Israel mine elect.
So the elect is Israel. We are the elect. This Bible is written by the Israelites, for the Israelites, to the Israelites. Everything revolves around the Israelites. I've never in all my years of reading this Bible ever seen the scripture where God destroyed the nation of Israel to help the other nations. Now, God has destroyed us because of disobedience, but it was never, God has destroyed the nations for us. Now, as for the nations, you've never read this. I don't know how you get to the New Testament and you get all nations can be saved. That doesn't make no sense to me. I read the Bible from front to cover, back, forward. I've never seen it anywhere where God was destroying them or destroying us for their glory. For them, no. We was only destroyed for punishment. We are God's elect. So let's go back. Let's read on.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 8. According as it is written. Well, I don't think I finished verse 7. Let me read verse 7 again. Verse 7. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded.
The elect hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Who was the rest that were blinded? Good.
The Sadducees and Pharisees, Matthew 23.
Okay, yeah, you're right. That's good. Southern Kingdom, many of the Southern Kingdom. But let's do what it said. The scribes, the Pharisees, and the rest were blinded. Give me that. You got it, John? Where you gonna read it from? Yeah, go read it from Isaiah 29 then.
Isaiah chapter 29 and verse 10. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered. Verse 11, and the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed.
Right. So what verse was that? Last verse you read.
That was verse 11.
Okay. Start in verse 10 again for me.
Isaiah chapter 29 and verse 10. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers and the seers hath he covered.
He said, these are those elect, and the rest were blinded. God closed their eyes of understanding. Here's one thing they couldn't understand. That northern kingdom could be saved. A lot of them could not understand that. They could not accept it. God blinded them from understanding it. We're going to go back and see why. Let's go. 11 and 8.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 8. According as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber, yea, that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, unto this day. And David saith, let their table be made a snare, and a trap, and a stumbling block, and a recompense unto them. Let their eyes be darkened, that they may not see, and bow down their back always.
So it says, and David said, let their table become a snare. What is the table? What scripture? Habakkuk 2. Let's go to it.
Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 2. And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it.
Right. The one in Isaiah 30 was right also. Sorry. Says, and he says, read again.
Habakkuk 2 and 2. And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it.
Right. So back in Romans 11, it says, and they said, let their table be made a snare. Let this Bible become a snare to them. It became a snare because their eyes were blinded. So they began to now do what? They had the Bible, but what did they begin to do? They had the Bible, but Isaiah chapter 30.
Isaiah chapter 28, verse 13. But the word of the Lord was unto them precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little, that they might go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken.
Right. So unto them, the Bible is precept upon precept, line upon line, just like us, just like those who believed on Christ. Here a little, there a little, that they might go backward and be broken and snared and taken. Read on.
Verse 14. Wherefore, hear the word of the Lord, ye scornful men that rule this people, which
Right.
is in Jerusalem.
Right. So these are the leaders. You say, hear these words, you scornful men. Who's that today? These churches. They'll go back and forth with you, but all their precepts is wrong.
Right.
You tell them you can't eat pork because of Leviticus 11. They say, yes, you can because of 1 Timothy 4. You tell them 1 Timothy 4 is talking about praying over food. They said, well, you can eat it because of Acts 10. Called nothing uncommon unclean. You show them Isaiah 66, they're going to come back with Mark 7. They got all the wrong precepts. You tell them all nations can't be saved, they're going to say, for God so loved the world. All the precepts are wrong. Let's go back.
Romans 11.
Mm-hmm.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 9. And David saith, let their table be made a snare, and a trap, and a stumbling block, and a recompense unto them. Let their eyes be darkened, that they may not see, and bow down their back always.
We don't.
I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall?
Now,
God
even
forbid.
though they're like that, have they stumbled that they should fall? No, God said no. Just like it was with the northern kingdom, it says they'll no longer be my people and I'll not be their God. But in the place where they was said that, there you should be called the sons of God. Hey, in this truth, brothers, you got to understand something. We always have the ace card, which is repentance. Just pull that card. Lord, forgive me and get yourself right. You only lose when you give up. You got to just walk away from this and never try to repent it. All you got to do is sincerely mean I'm sorry and work on it. And you could. So even though they were like that, he says, have they stumbled that they should fall away? What did Paul come back and said?
God forbid.
No. No, even that their eyes was darkened, it was never meant forever. God does not want to see us die in sin. Not that he won't kill us in it, but it's not his first choice. He wants us to reason with ourselves, get right with him, and make it right. Him killing us, destroy us, is his last alternative. But he's going to try everything else because he's a long-suffering and merciful God. But there is a time when enough is enough with him. It just is. So who want to tempt that and figure when that day is? Ain't the good move. Trust me, ain't the good move. We had a brother just now, another congregation, stepped out on his wife, kissed some chick. Next thing you know, his throat swelled up. He dropped dead. Had a whole wife home and messed with some chick and started getting bumps to his throat. Throat swole up. Muerto. That's it. Dang. Yeah. Go. Yeah, go ahead, go.
Psalms chapter 69, verse 22.
Let me get there with you. Yeah, go ahead, start reading.
Let their table become a snare before them, that they wait, let me read that again. Let their table become a snare before them, and that which should have been for their welfare, let it become a trap.
Damn, lead on.
Let their eyes be darkened, that they see not, and make their loins continually to shake.
Right. It says, let their table become a snare before them, that they should have been for their welfare, let it become a trap. You've seen that in this truth. You've seen some brothers bug out and get his Bible, and they're reading in the blue book, trying to get all these breakdowns. They come out with a breakdown that is, after all this reading they doing, you can eat brisket on Passover. Where did you get that from? The scriptures, I've been studying all this stuff and look at all the highlights. Yo, pass me the blunt. It's like, all your breakdowns. Ooh, it has become a trap to you. You know why? Verse 23.
Let their eyes be darkened, that they see not.
Because they cannot see clearly anymore. Their eyes are darkened. Read on.
And make their loins continually to shake.
And let their loins continue to shake in fear. Let's go back.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 10, or verse 11. I say then, had they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy.
Okay, so now you're going to have to help me out a little bit right here. Who wants to explain that verse? Nobody? Right there.
Shalom, Bishop. The Gentiles would be the same northern kingdom that was talked about in the previous chapter.
Romans chapter 11, verse 11. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles.
What is the fall?
The fall is the fall from Christ. They didn't understand Christ.
If that's the case, to fall means they had to once understand him. So no, I want you to be specific in, how do I say it without saying the answer? It was an event. Okay, before you say what we gonna say?
They killed Christ. They put him to death.
No. Okay. Read those two verses together, Kani.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 10. Let their eyes be darkened, that they may not see, and bow down their back always. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy.
Read on.
Now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness?
Okay, so now the question I have for you is, what is that event that took place? Because what I'm talking about is their fall that you read about was the riches of the world. What was the fall?
Would it be slavery, sir?
No.
Okay.
Who wants to help him out? Let me see if I can ask it differently. That's my problem. I don't know how to ask questions. Okay, verse 11. Have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid, meaning no. But rather, through their fall, through whose fall? Say it loud. Through the fall of southern kingdom, salvation is come unto the Gentiles. Who's the Gentiles? Okay, so explain to me what was the fall of the southern kingdom that brought about salvation to the northern kingdom? Okay. Okay, somebody else, come here.
Hey, stand up, stand up.
It's an event in history.
Shalom. I was gonna say Jeremiah 3 when the Lord wrote
No.
the bill of divorcement.
Okay.
Luke 21.
Very good. Very good. Let's go to Luke 21. Very good. Very good.
The book of Luke, chapter 21 and verse 20. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out.
So, Big Red, that's the answer I'm looking for. So explain it. I want you to color that picture in for me. How was them falling in 70 AD was going to be the salvation to all those that were scattered? Just talk to me. Just talk to me.
So you said
How was their fall of the southern kingdom in 70 AD? Because when you read it, it says, for if the verse 12, for if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them be the riches of the Gentiles, how much more is their fullness? So how is their falling going to be the riches of the world? So 70 AD is what I'm looking for.
right. So after that, we ran into Africa.
And how is it going to be the riches of the world?
Through us standing up today, going to the.
You got the right script. I'm here. You ain't saying the word I'm looking for. Somebody pass it on, Mike.
Shalom, Bishop.
Shalom.
By the temple being destroyed, there was no longer any sacrifices, so everybody had to look to Christ.
Okay, right. But how is it going to be the rich? Okay, I'm going to try it differently. I'm just going to give you a scenario. We all are Jews, raised up in the laws of God, right? That means we all know we can't eat pork, right? I want interaction. I want you to answer me back like we're talking, please, because it's hard. All right, we all know that we can't murder, right? We all know we can't do idolatry, right? All right, then. Christ warned us in Matthew 24 that Jerusalem was going to be destroyed, right? So we knew it. So now when Jerusalem was going to be destroyed, what were we supposed to do? Say it. We was going to get up out of there. So now how is us getting out of there, leaving what happened in Luke 21, the riches of the world? Man, I just laid down the whole answer for you. Right there with the glasses on. Yeah. Good.
It would be the uniting of the 12 tribes at that point.
You're not saying what I want to hear you say. I thought you were going to say. If not you, somebody else. There's nobody else in here who can raise their hand? Come on, man. I don't care if it's the wrong answer. Just give me a hand right there. Same hands.
Because we would be scattered across the world.
And stay right there. And because we all know that we can't eat pork, we can't do idolatry, we can't fornicate, and we scattered, what's going to happen?
Now those laws are going to be spread where we are.
Say it, I can't hear you.
Now those laws that we know are going to be spread with us.
It's going to be spread to who?
To all people.
To all the Gentiles going to learn it now.
Right.
That's the riches of the world. Give me Wisdom of Solomon real quick. Wisdom of Solomon 8. We're going to come back and read this again. Well, 8 and 5, I think it is. That's it, right?
That's it, yeah. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 8 and verse 5. If riches be a possession to be desired in this life, what is richer than wisdom that worketh all things?
So there's nothing richer than wisdom. And we have wisdom because we already know we can't eat pork, right? We all know that we can't fornicate. We all know idolatry is wrong. So let's go through this. Let's go back up for the top now. Start with Romans 11 and 11.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 11. I say then, had they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall salvation is come unto the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy.
So look what it says. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? No, we didn't stumble that we should fall. Paul said he was a Jew, he was an Israelite too from the tribe of Benjamin. It says that it should fall, lost my place. It says, their fall, it says, but rather, God forbid, but rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles. Salvation is us Jews going out there that believed on him to provoke the rest of them to jealousy. So we were forced. Now I'm going to give you an example. Paul also, when he persecuted the church, the Jews fled. And they went to different cities. And they carried the gospel. Luke 21, Christ prophesied that in 70 AD, it was going to fall. And what did he tell us in Matthew 24? Flee into the mountains. Flee. Who do you think stayed back in Jerusalem? Let's go to Matthew 24 real quick. Give me 24 and 1.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 1. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and the disciples came to him for to shew him the building of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
He told us what? His disciples that. Verse 15.
Verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand.
He says, whoever read, let him understand. He told him, this temple will not stand. I'm telling you all, everybody's living life, doing their thing. He said, this temple will not stand. He said, he came back and says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. So now, he said, when you start seeing this abomination, what's going to happen? If you was back then, you start seeing the Romans coming in. Titus and Vespasian, they took over the temple, they're destroying. You're like, remember what Christ said, one stone in this temple is not going to stand. Those that believe it, if you believe that you had faith. Now watch what it says.
Verse 15. Wherefore ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand.
Whoso readeth the prophecy that was going to happen, that what Daniel spoke about, that means you understand it. Your eyes ain't darkened. You can clearly see what Daniel spoken about is happening again. It happened many times in history. It happened in the time of Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar. It happened again in this time. And now it's clear. Okay, what Christ said was going to happen is coming to pass. Read on. Now, when he wrote this, or this came out in Matthew 24, it didn't happen for another 30-something, about 40 years, whatever it was, before it happened. Watch.
Verse 16. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
That was the fall. But we all believe, we understand, we fled. And we fled and we took the gospel. And that was the salvation to the northern kingdom now. They started hearing the word. They understood what Peter told them. What God told Peter, let nothing call nothing common or unclean. Whither will he go? To disperse amongst the Gentiles, to teach the Gentiles? I have sheep that's not of this fold. Them also must I bring in, that there be one fold, one shepherd. Isaiah 11, the end signs. Ezekiel 37. Isaiah 65. This was the riches to the world. Wisdom is now coming to them. But amongst all that wisdom that was coming to them, you can have some niggas in there that crept in unawares. That's why you got to do what? So you don't get caught. You have to show thyself approved. Rightly dividing, that means precept upon precept. And you're going to only have the right precept if you're keeping the commandments. All right, so let's go back. Read on. Yeah, finish it.
Verse 17. Let him that which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days.
Yeah, woe. Now, wait a second. Him that understand, they're going to flee. But woe unto him that's with child and give suck in those days. Read on.
Verse 20. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be.
So now we know Matthew 24 is twofold. This is talking about future prophecy also. I'm not talking about that part. I'm not talking about that part, and the reason why, because I'm reading in verse 16. Read.
Verse 16. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
Now, if you believe it, he that believeth taketh heed to the commandment, right? This is a commandment from God. He says, flee unto the mountains. The ones who didn't do that would be those that didn't have faith, that didn't believe that he was the Messiah. And it says, woe to you that give suck in those days, because you're going to be trapped right up in the city on Masada, and you're going to starve to death. You're going to die of starvation. I warned you 30-something years in advance. I'm going to help you out today. Just like today, there's enough warning. The famine is coming. Prepare yourself. Get yourself healthy. Prepare. Get food, water put away. Some ain't going to listen. Some will listen. But in that day and that time when it happened, don't say you didn't hear. If you don't listen, you don't have what? You don't believe. You just don't believe. Some people are going to be used for examples on what to do, and some are going to be used on what not to do. But you're going to be used. You're going to be used. Verse 17.
Verse 17. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house.
Stop. That's good. Luke 21. It's a very good read. That's what I was looking for. Now remember, Paul's ministry was like around the year 30 A.D. Somewhere around it. Can you Google that real quick? Real quick. Paul's ministry. What was I using Herod for again? Agrippa. Yeah. What was I using? Paul's ministry, the years of Paul's ministry. I forgot what I was using. Was it then? Now go back to Google. Does it give it a year? It's in the 30 something. I'll pull up. I'll find it. 33 A.D. You found it? what it says there? So it's around 33 AD. So there was still some time. But there was a slow progression of Jerusalem falling away. You had many of the Jews. Remember, Herod set up the temple there. Agrippa began to persecute the church. Give me that in Acts 12 real quick.
The book of Acts, chapter 12 and verse 1. Now about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also.
So this was Herod Agrippa. So this was the persecution. So this was like in the 30s too. It had to been the 30s, late 20s, 30s. So these were the persecution. These were all signs of the direction Jerusalem was going in. This is what was happening. This was all preparatory to the Gentiles receiving the riches. So now imagine when we start seeing James and these men being persecuted, being put to death. What do you think many of the Jews start doing? They start fleeing. They start getting out the city. They start leaving. And that's the process of the riches coming, the fall of Jerusalem. Remember, I was saying earlier, Jerusalem was the epicenter of the earth. Jerusalem was the epicenter of the land of Israel. All the tribes, we all wanted to go to Jerusalem. It was the feast day 3 times a year. Everybody got their families, caravan. Everybody's going out to that city. That's where everything was at. That's where God set up. That's where his footstool was, Jerusalem, the city of David. That's why, get that real quick. Lamentations. I'm deviating a little bit, but just bear with me. I'm trying to help paint that picture as far as the fall. Lamentations chapter 1. Start with verse 1.
Lamentations chapter 1 and verse 1. How doth the city sit solitary that was full of people? How is she become as a widow? She that was great among the nations and princess among the provinces. How is she become tributary?
Right, this is about Jerusalem. How has Jerusalem become that? Because we saw the fall. We saw the fall of Northern Kingdom. Judah, Benjamin, Levi, we wasn't affected like that when Northern Kingdom fell. Even though they began to try to encroach down, but they wasn't getting into Jerusalem like that. God held them off. Isaiah, he told them in 65 years, they're going to be destroyed. So we all right. We good for the most part, so we think. But then we still wasn't going to do right. And then came Babylon. And when we fell, or when Judah, I'm going to use Judah particularly, when the city of Judah fell, it's like, yo, how does the great city that everybody wants worship at fell? No. So imagine in 70 AD, the temple fell. Everybody scattered. The severity of that was so great, but it was a great blessing for the Northern Kingdom. It was a blessing. Does it say that same thing in Romans? The severity and the, don't say the same chapter? Romans 11, give me that real quick.
Romans chapter 11, verse
22.
22. Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God on them which fell, severity.
That's Judah.
But toward thee, goodness, if thou continue in his goodness.
But the goodness was to the Northern Kingdom. So in that one act, 2 things played out. Judgment and the severity to Judah, and the goodness and mercy to the Northern Kingdom. So let's go back in Romans 11. 11 and 11.
Romans chapter 11, verse 11. I say then.
Oh, I didn't read Luke 21 and 20. I'm sorry. Bear with me.
The book of Luke, chapter 21 and verse 20. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh.
So now when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, so what happened? We began to see the insurgents of the Roman army start slowly piling up. Those that believe, like, oh, snap. Remember what Christ said? Know that destruction is close. There's key indicating signs that believers that have faith is going to remember, yeah, Christ did say that. Now that we hear that, what we supposed to do? Read.
Verse 21. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains.
Same thing we read in Matthews. Then let them flee out. Get out.
And let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let not them that are in the countries enter therein too.
So wherever we went, we took this gospel with us. And that was the riches to those Gentiles. Wisdom came. Wisdom came to them. And it slowly began to happen. Don't think when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, it's like you woke up tomorrow and there's an army in the city. This happened over a period of time. You sort of seen it lining up. But those with discernment can start seeing what's happening. Things are chasing. Things are changing. All in the land of Samaria. You start saying, hey, why is it so? You see all that stuff going, all those ships landing over there by Caesarea? Because that's where they came through. They either had to march down or came by ships. Yeah. Yeah, they built all these ports over there in Caesarea. For what? All these ships are coming out. Why are all these supplies coming over now? Yeah, look all up in the land of Samaria. Up there, it's all taken up now. Why are these Romans like that? Don't you ever think about that, Max, you all down here? Don't you ever think about that when you see the railroads and you be seeing car after car with tanks on it? What's going on? What's all these tanks moving like that for, like that? There's some kind of, I don't know what you military guys call, some type of mission. Did your minds don't think like that? Yeah. Hey, can you guys respond? Damn. I feel like I'm talking to myself. Yeah, so that's how my mind thinks. I'm like, damn. So I'm thinking in my mind when they was back there saying, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, no, destruction is close. All right? Let's go back. Yeah, Romans.
Romans chapter 11, verse 11. I say, we were in verse 12. Verse 12. Now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles,
70 AD.
How much more their fullness?
Read on.
For I speak to you, Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify mine office.
Paul said, I speak to you, Gentiles. As I am apostle of the Gentiles, I'm magnifying or making clear my office. Paul's specific office was to go to the Gentiles. Now I'm going to see why would that, why do you think that was his office? See who's thinking about Paul. There's a lot of people. Why was Paul's office to go to the Gentiles? Why not Peter, James, John, Luke? No, right here. That's your big red. Right, because he persecuted Jews. It wouldn't have been his best interest to go, but they would have killed him in Jerusalem. Not just the Jews, the Pharisees, they would have really killed him because he was one of them. And now he was killing it. He was vexing the church, and now he coming back to he believed on Christ. They wasn't going to accept him. The Pharisees, they would have killed him. That's why he snuck in. He had to get let down in a basket. They had to hide him because they wanted to kill him. Paul had a real hard life. Real hard life. Galatians 2. 2 and 7.
Galatians chapter 2, verse 7. But
Start the verse before that.
Galatians chapter 2, verse 6. But of what these who seem to be somewhat, whatsoever they were, it maketh no matter to me. God accepteth no man's person. For they
stop. It said God respect no man's person. We read that in Romans 2. God is no respect of person. Read on.
But they who seem to be somewhat in conference added nothing to me.
He said, those that seem to conference, they don't add nothing to me. Why? Paul's already studied. Paul said, I was a fighter. Trust me. These men who you think, they really ain't that much. They ain't more than me. God showed me. And he didn't want to have to boast, but he had to boast that I'm not a whip behind none of these dudes you think coming out here. I'm warning you guys. Who have bewitched you? Who fooled you to go to sacrifice? And read on.
Verse 7, but contrariwise, When they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto me,
He says, when they saw that the gospel of the uncircumcision was committed unto me,
as the gospel of circumcision was unto Peter,
but the gospel of circumcision was committed unto Peter. Peter dealt with the Jews in Jerusalem. But Peter also understood that the northern kingdom could be grafted in. He understood that. That's Acts 10. That's why Paul got on Peter when Peter got up from them at the table when he's sitting them. He said, yo, you teach them a long lesson. You should, if anybody, you should know better, Peter. God showed you the vision. Read on.
Verse 8, for he that wrought effectually in Peter to the apostleship of the circumcision, the same was mighty in me toward the Gentiles.
He said, God gave that same dispensation of that spirit to me towards the Gentiles. Let's go back.
Romans chapter 11, verse 13. For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify mine office. If by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them.
Okay, so he says, if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. Who's of his flesh? The Jews, because he was of the southern kingdom. He said, if by any means I may provoke them to emulation. Okay, I'm just going to say it because I don't know how to ask it. The way he would have provoked them to emulation would have been by what? Exercising his office to the Gentiles and teaching them, guiding them, letting the Holy Spirit jump upon them, and he said, look at them. Look how they know them scriptures. Look, you can't get them caught up in that Bible. Look how they can explain it. That's the Holy Spirit upon them. You, Jews, should have known it because you had the, no, oh yes, that's the word. I want you to use the word it says. He says, you Jews, look at these scattered ones. Look how they know the scriptures. But you Jews should have known it because you had the, that's another word. You had the, say it. Over that corner. Say it louder. No, that wasn't the word. Romans 3. Now, it's one word I want. No, Romans 3.
Romans chapter 3 and verse 2. Or we start at verse 1. What advantage then hath the Jew?
What?
What advantage then hath the Jew?
He said, what advantage then hath the Jew?
Or what profit is there of circumcision?
What was the profit of being of the circumcision?
Much every way.
Every way was a profit to be, because you had the laws. You had the laws, and when you were scattered, what was you going to take to these people living out there? The laws of God. That was the riches, the wisdom. So the diminishing of the Jews, 70 AD, them falling, was a riches to the rest of the other tribes. Let me ask you a question. If that's the case, the Bible's constant. It's never changed. From Genesis, Judah was the lawgiver, right? Back then, it was the Jews that was going to carry the gospel. So what would it be today? What scripture would you give me for today? Very good. Get it. What would it be today? Read it.
Zechariah chapter 12, verse 7. The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first.
Same thing. And once it, read on, finish it.
That the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah.
Right. Don't let none of the tribes magnify this against the so-called Negro today. You African-American, it sounds so stupid to say African-American. I'm saying it because I want to be funny. You African-Americans, you are the Jews. Because in the last days, who did God raise up to bring this gospel across the earth? Who's Judah here? Damn. So when God raised you up to bring the gospel, who did God raise up? You're supposed to say me. To bring this gospel around the world. But Genesis 49. Remind me. Yeah, go finish. We'll go back to it. I want to stick Judah a little bit right now. Genesis 49.
Genesis chapter 49 and verse 9. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up?
Okay, but Judah, the prophecy was, Judah is as a lion's whelp. You know what a whelp is? A whelp is like a pup. So Judah, you're like a lion's whelp. It says, from the prey, my son, thou art gone up. What is it trying to say? From the prey, thou art gone up, Judah. One of you Judahites help me. I don't want a Benjamite to help me. This is for them. Let Judah answer it. No Judahites want to answer. Now all of a sudden nobody want to answer. You want a Benjamite to answer the free? Okay, come on, Judah. Help me out. So let me read it in its entirety first. Judah is as a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? So what does it mean, Judah is gone up from the prey?
Like, where's your hunger? Where your fight at? Like,
okay, very good.
You got the vigor no more.
Okay, very good. Your Judahites got real weak. Y'all start making love songs to your women. It don't matter if another dude is digging out your back. I love you anyway. That's you. That's Judah. I'm just saying that's what y'all did. But who was going to rouse you back up? Christ. Thank you. He put that spirit back on y'all, and y'all ain't singing love songs like that no more. Damn, y'all love to sing to your woman, boy. Y'all love singing to that damn woman, boy. Y'all worship them, damn. You got your mama picture in the house, you got your wife picture in the house, you got your daughter, and your picture's in the closet. Got you in the closet. I love my mama, she's my favorite girl. Dad was a Rolling Stone. Damn, you all messed up. All right, so watch this. Judah is a lion's whelp. Is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou hast gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion and as an old lion. Who shall rouse him up? 10.
Verse 10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet.
Even though y'all was weak, it said the scepter was not going to depart from you, nor the lawgiver was going to come from the loins of Judah. Read on, which is Christ. Read on.
Until Shiloh come.
Until Shiloh come. So when Shiloh came, what was going to happen? Judah was going to start taking back his place. And he wasn't going to ask permission. Like a lion, he going to take and dominate. Today on earth, everybody want to follow Judah. Except Judah. I mean, funny. Not y'all. Until Shiloh come. Until they understood Shiloh. That's why Paul said, is there more behind it? Yeah, read on.
And unto him shall the gathering of the people be.
Even though you was like an old lion, Judah, the scepter, God already had a place, the election according to grace, that you was going to be the one to lead the nation of Israel. That in the last days he's going to raise you up. The church of Judah shall rise first. And none of us can magnify ourselves again. None of us can be what you are. You were made unique for this same purpose, to gather in one, the 12 tribes of Israel. Now y'all love that, right, Judah? and I love it too, because that's what the Bible say. I don't got no problem following. Once you're doing the right thing, yeah, let's go. Let's go. I just want to be on the train. But you Jews, you needed one to teach you again the first oracles of God. Hebrews 5. Where's Benjamin in here? Benjamin, raise your hand. It's good to see y'all. It's good to see y'all. So let me say this real quick so you all understand. Look at all you Judites. Ephraim, my nearest of kin right there. Say this. It took Paul.
That's right.
To have to let y'all know something. I'm just messing with y'all. Let's go. Romans 5. Hebrews 5. It was Paul who had to tell you was needing milk. You need some milk. You need some milk. Let's go to Romans 5.
Hebrews 5.
I'm saying Romans 5. Hebrews 5. Hebrews 5 and 12. That's it?
Hebrews chapter 5, verse 12.
Is that it?
Yes.
Let me go there with you. See what Judas was supposed to say just now when I got up. Don't try to magnify yourself against Judah now. Sit back down. Read on. Right, Hebrews 5.
Hebrews chapter 5, verse 12. For when the time ye ought to be teachers, ye need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God.
He says, when the time you ought to be teachers, why? What advantage did then have the Jew? Because the oracles of God was committed unto them. They knew it. When all times you're supposed to be teachers, you Hebrews, you got to be retaught. Like Paul had to been retaught. He had all these precepts, but what he didn't understand was Christ. It wasn't until Christ revealed himself to him on the road to Damascus that now it's clear now. Oh, okay, that's what it means. You ought one to teach you again. Read on.
And ye become such as one as have need of milk and not of strong meat.
You're like a whelp. You're like a pup. You need a little milk first to build you back up. You're like a lion's whelp. You're in your full potential yet. Read on.
For everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness.
So try to think about it in terms of a lion, because we were talking about earlier. If a whelp is still on the milk, right? It is unskillful in hunting. It ain't a hunter. You're still on mama's milk. You're a young lion, but who was going to rouse you up? Christ. He was going to put that spirit back in you. That's what you've been today doing. This word is around the world because of Judah. Because Christ put his spirit on you and chose you when you was living all manner of debauchery and put the spirit on you, and because of Judah, you spread the word around this world today. That all the other tribes are now coming in. That was the office given to you. That's why when Jerusalem fell in Lamentation, said, damn, how does this city turn dim? They broke through and destroyed Judah. Okay, they got Samaria. They got the land of Ephraim. Jerusalem? That's why the nations hissed and laughed in that day. That's why they said when they got it, they said, what? Race it, even to the foundation. Destroy, lay this, don't ever let them come back up again. Lay it flat down. Leave nothing standing. Because Judah, you were impregnable when you were keeping the commandments. And we all fell in the hedge. But when sin came in, we allowed the enemy to come in. Another class, another time. Let's go back to Romans. I'm going to try to, oh, damn. How far in Romans are we now?
11 and 14.
I'm not going to get through this. Oh, okay, let's go read.
Romans chapter 11, verse 14. If by any means I may provoke you to emulation, them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world.
Damn, you understand how great this was? Because the casting away of them, the southern kingdom, be the reconciling of the rest of Israel. God said, I'm going to teach y'all something. I'm going to provoke you to jealousy with people that was once considered heathens. I'm going to put my spirit upon them. That's why Paul said, I would hope to provoke you to emulation. Follow suit. Look at what I'm doing with them. Read on.
Verse 14. If by any means I may provoke you to emulate, or verse 15. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy.
1 Corinthians 15:23.
First Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 23. But every man in his own order, Christ the first fruits, afterwards they that are Christ at his coming.
Right. So if the first fruits, which is Christ, be holy, the lump is holy. Romans 9:21.
Romans chapter 9, verse 21. Hath not the potter power over the clay, and of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor?
He said he made one vessel unto honor and what?
One unto dishonor?
And one unto dishonor. Hold this 1 second. What verse was that you just read? Read out the quote again.
Romans chapter 9, verse 21.
I lost my place.
You want to read it?
Yeah.
Hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor?
So that lump we're talking about, one to honor and one unto dishonor, was talking about the honor was us, because that vessel was talking about Israel. In the book of Hosea, I can't recall it, but I know it's in Hosea, it talks about us being the vessels Israel. Anybody know it? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Read that.
Hosea chapter 8, verse 8. Israel is swallowed up now. They shall be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure.
Right, so Israel was the vessel. Let's go back.
Romans 9.
Yeah, Romans, that's it. Back to Romans 11, verse 16.
The book of Romans chapter 11, verse 16. For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches.
And if the root be holy, so are the branches. What is the root? Somebody give me that precept. Very good. Let's go to Revelation 22:16.
The book of Revelations, chapter 22, verse 16. I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star.
Right. I am the root and the offspring of David. That's what it says. And a lawgiver from between his feet. Let's go back to Romans 11, verse 17.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 17. And if some of the branches be broken off.
I'm sorry, read from verse 16 down.
Verse 16. For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches.
Read.
And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree were grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and fatness of the olive tree, boast not against the branches. But if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee.
Right, so who wants to explain it? Just in layman's term, what is that talking about? Nobody. I don't see who's raising their hand. Oh, Jalo, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's saying that the northern kingdom, they were coming up in the spirit, but they was boasting themselves against southern kingdom, Judah.
Very good. So no, stop. You're right. So it says, boast not against the branches, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root thee. Explain that last part. But if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. What's the root?
The root goes back to Christ.
Right.
Christ came from the tribe of Judah. That
right,
goes
so
back
says,
to.
if you boast, remember, the root doesn't bear you. Boast not, but if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. I want you to explain that. Thou bearest not the root, but the root thee.
That goes back to Zechariah 12 and 7, when it says Judah first.
Okay. All right, right here. Right in the front. Right. It's through me. Through me. Just remember, you don't hold me up. In other words, he's trying to take away that division. He's trying to tell you, even though they fell, it was a blessing for you, But in God's eye, there's no difference between Jew and Greek. We all fall short. Say that in Romans 2, right? Does say that in Romans 2? Ain't that Romans 2? Somebody help me. 3:23. Let's get that real quick.
Romans chapter 3, verse 23. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God.
Right, so because we all fall. Just remember that even though this is a blessing for you, don't think that you're something special. Because you're not, in his eyes, none of us are right. Let's go back. Oh, so being that I said that, before I read that, let's read that. Go to the book of Romans. I'm staying in Romans right now. Jump around. Watch this. Romans chapter 1, verse 21.
The book of Romans chapter 1 and verse 21. Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened.
Right. He said when they knew God, they didn't retain God in their spirit. Read on.
Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools.
Read.
And changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man.
He said you changed the incorruptible God into corruptible things. They went into idolatry. Read on.
Man, and to birds, and to four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through their lust of their own heart, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. Who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than their creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up to vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly.
So they went into homosexuality. Read on.
And receiving in themselves the recompense of their error, which was meat.
Read.
And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, malice, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them.
So what struck me in that is the last part. They do it and they have pleasure in other people that's doing it too. They like to see you dirty just like them. Now here's the point. The next chapter, first verse.
Romans chapter 2, verse 1. Therefore,
because of what you just read, therefore,
thou art inexcusable, O man, whosoever thou art that judgest. For wherein thou judgest another, thou condemnest thyself.
He says, remember what you was caught up into. You was all kind of homosexuality, whatever you was at into. He says, don't now judge. Don't try to judge because you fall short yourself. You wasn't right. Don't boast against the natural branches because they went off. But they wasn't doing the stuff some of y'all was doing. What they had to learn was faith in Christ. And you of the southern kingdom, don't y'all deal the way you dealing with because they had enough faith to come into this. So what's God shown them? Neither one of you right. It's through my mercies is that any of us are here today, all right? Let's go back. I don't want to go too far into that. Back in Romans chapter 11.
Romans chapter 11, verse 18.
Okay, I'm going to run through these real quick. Verse 17.
Verse 17. And if some of the branches be broken off.
The branches, Jeremiah 11, 16.
Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 16. The Lord called thy name a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit. With the noise of a great tumult he hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. For the Lord of hosts hath planted thee, hath pronounced For the Lord of hosts that planted thee hath pronounced evil against thee. For the evil of the house of Judah and of the house of Israel, which they have done against themselves, to provoke me to anger in offering incense to Baal.
So we know that we were the branches. So read that. Jeremiah, stay right there in Isaiah. Go to Isaiah 2, verse 21. No, Jeremiah 2:21. Just hold it right there. I want to read something. So back in in Romans 11:17, if some of the branches were broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree were grafted in among them, and with them partakers of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. What's that wild olive tree? Jeremiah 2:21.
Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 21. Yet I planted thee a noble vine, wholly a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me?
Right. Yet I have planted thee a noble vine, a holy and right seed. How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? Hosea 9:10. This is how.
Hosea chapter 9, verse 10. I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first ripe in the fig tree at her first time. But they went to Baal Peor.
But they went what?
To Baal Peor, and separated themselves unto that shame, and their abominations were according as they loved.
Right. He says, I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first ripe in the fig tree at the first time. But they went unto Baal Peor. So they became what? They became what? Huh? Talk louder. They went to idol worship. They became that wild grape. Go back.
Romans chapter 11, verse 17. And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, wert grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and the fatness of the olive tree, boast not against the branches. But if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Thou wilt say then, the branches were broken off, that I might be grafted in.
So that's what they would say. The branches, or the natural branches, which was Judah, Benjamin, Levi, are broken off, that northern kingdom could be grafted in. Read on.
Verse 20. Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off.
Because of what?
Because of unbelief.
That's why they were broken off, because of unbelief. That's why Paul understood. He told, listen, be merciful, be patient with them. He says, because I'm a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin. Look at me. Have God cut them off? No. God has a remnant that's reserved for him. You just got to be long-suffering and patient. And wait. God is going to call them the ones he wants in that time. Read on.
Because of unbelief, they were broken off, that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief, verse 21, for if God spared not the natural branches, take heed, lest he also spare not thee.
Okay, real quick, Luke 4:24.
The book of Luke, chapter 4, verse 24. And he said, verily I say unto you, no prophet is accepted in his own country.
Watch this. Matthew 13, 52.
Matthew chapter 13, verse 52. Then he said unto them, therefore every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is an householder, which bringeth forth out of his treasure things new and old. And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these parables, he departed thence. And when he was come into his own country, he taught them in their synagogue, insomuch that they were astonished, and said, whence hath this man this wisdom and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary, and his brethren James, Joseph, and Simon and Judas, and his sisters? Are they not all with us? Whence then hath this man all these things? And they were offended in him. But Jesus said unto him, A prophet is not with honor save in his own country and in his own house. And he did not many mighty works because of their unbelief.
So let's go back. 11 and 20 of Romans.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 20. Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off.
Because they didn't want to believe on Christ. After he showed them what he showed them, they were broken off. Read on.
And thou standest by faith. Be not high-minded, but fair.
But you're standing by faith. Just your faith. But don't be high-minded, but fair. Read on.
For if God spared not the natural branches,
but if God did not spare the natural branches,
take heed lest he also spare not thee.
Take heed like he don't spare you. Because God is no respect of person. We read that in Romans 2 earlier. If God has spared them, he's saying, do not be boastful. Read on.
Verse 22. Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God on them which fell severity, but toward thee goodness, if thou continue in his goodness. Otherwise, thou shalt also be cut off.
So wait a second. Go back up.
Verse 22.
21.
Verse 21. For if God spared not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee.
Right. Take heed lest he also do not spare thee.
Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God.
Behold, the goodness and severity of God. Now explain. That's to be simple at this point. What is the goodness of God? Nobody. What's the severity of God? Now explain it in regards to the Jews and the scattered Israelites.
The goodness of God would be Northern Kingdom being able to be taught.
And how would that come about?
Through the Luke 21. Judah would have.
Okay, right. Through use the words right here. The goodness was the goodness was the Northern Kingdom was going to be taught.
Yes, sir.
And it was going to come about by what?
By being taught by Judah.
Yes, you're right.
By faith, really.
No. Remember we just read the goodness and severity of God?
Yes, sir.
So the goodness of God was they were going to get the word, right?
Right.
And it was going to be taught by Judah, and that was because of the
severity of God to the Jews.
God's severity against them was good for the Northern Kingdom. All right?
Yes, sir.
That's why Paul said now we're going to come back to this in a second. Remember, in those people now being persecuted, some of them who left Jerusalem before the destruction, they believed on Christ, right? They believed on him. But while they was gone, some of them turned back. Some of them stopped believing on Christ. That's why he wrote what he wrote in Hebrews. Let's go to it real quick. Hebrews 10. I want verse. I don't read all this. Read Hebrews 10:25.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much more as ye see the day approaching. For if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sin.
Now look who he's writing to. He's writing this to the Hebrews now. These are those that believe, that came up as Jews. Paul was a Hebrew of the Hebrews, of the tribe of Benjamin. Read on.
But a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour their adversaries.
Mm-hmm.
He that despised Moses' law died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. Of how much sore punishment suppose ye shall be thought worthy, who hath trodden under foot the Son of God, and hath counted the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified an unholy thing.
You were sanctified in it because at one point you believed. But now you consider an unholy thing. Read on.
And hath done despite unto the Spirit of grace.
Read on.
For we know him that hath said, Vengeance belongeth unto me. I will recompense, saith the Lord. And again, the Lord shall judge his people.
Now, some of them going to come in and be amongst them. But they're gonna forsake this. They're going to turn around away from this. So what? Timothy's chapter, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1.
Second Timothy chapter 3 and verse 1. This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away.
Right. They're going to have the form of godliness, but they're going to deny the power. So they're going to look the part. These are going to be these Jews, these Hebrews that was amongst them. They're going to look the part. But he says they're not for this. They're going to turn. Read on.
Verse 6. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins.
Right. Read on.
Led away with diverse lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth.
Their eyes were still darkened. They never, ever fully changed. They still was caught up. You had some Jews that still sacrificed, and it was all right. But in their minds never fully changed. And eventually, they turned, and they went back. So now, how would you defend yourself against that? You were of the scattered. You had Jews that came in that seemed to be part of us, but now they came with another doctrine. How would you be able to defend yourself against that? Because they knew the scriptures. You had to do what? Okay, it's a simple answer. This ain't deep. I'm coming in here, and I'm now trying to convince you to do something other than you were taught. Ain't none of you been in truth longer than me. The only way to defeat that is you better do what before I get in here? Huh? You better study. Go back one chapter.
2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Study to shew thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
You know why you're going to need to do that for? Because of the verse before that.
Verse 14. Of these things put them in remembrance, charging them before the Lord, that they strive not about words to no profit, but to the subverting of the hearers.
Because the point, I want to subvert the hearers. But it's what you're supposed to do. Verse 16.
Verse 16. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness.
Don't listen to it. Read on.
And their word will eat as doth a canker.
Because my word's going to eat like a canker, because I could be persuasive. But you better study to show yourself approved so you can rightly divide the word of truth. Now, I hear what he's saying, but that ain't what it mean over there, because over here it says this. These were going to be Jews that came out that scattered amongst them. And these Jews were sent out by Satan while they was amongst them, when the Spirit got on them, to now to see who are the true believers amongst those northern kingdoms. Because problems arose in the church. But even with that, don't boast yourself against them. Let's go back. That's another class. I don't want to take it too far, right? Romans. Where we at in Romans?
Verse 22. Romans chapter 11 and verse 22. Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God on them which fell severity, but toward thee goodness, if thou continue in his goodness. Otherwise thou shalt also be cut off. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief.
I lost my place. What verse?
We're now in verse 23.
23, go ahead.
And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in.
Right, if they abide not still in unbelief, if they change and they start believing, they shall be what?
Grafted in.
They shall also be grafted in. So what does it say about these Jews? Read on.
For God is able to graft them in again.
Now watch this. Go to Acts 21. (21:17).
The book of Acts, chapter 21 and verse 17. And when we were come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. And the day following, Paul went in with us unto James, and all the elders were present.
Read.
And when they had saluted them, he declared particularly what things God hath wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry.
So who's the him here? Paul. Paul began to declare to them all the things he has done for this gospel towards the Gentiles, right? Next verse.
Verse 20. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord.
Stop. And when they heard it, who was the they that heard it? Come on, louder. Come on, everybody. The Jews, the apostles. Come on. And when they heard it, they what?
They glorified the Lord and said unto him, Thou seest,
and
brother,
said unto him. Who's the him? They said unto Paul.
Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews how many thousands of Jews there are which believe.
Which believe what? Read on.
And they are all zealous of the law.
And they're still keeping these commandments. Read on.
And they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that there ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs.
Now they said they got word, Paul, that you're teaching the Jews that are amongst the Gentiles. So you had Jews that scattered and was living amongst them. What do you think those Jews was doing there? They were teaching. That's why he said what he said in Romans 13. What advantage then have the Jew? Much every way, because the words of them was committed unto them. I could butcher scripture. Because the oracles of God was committed unto them. He said, there's Jews amongst them, Paul, that you're teaching to forsake the sacrificial law. They didn't want to hear that. They believed on Christ, but they were still sacrificing. Some of those same ones was the ones that Paul warned people about. Some of them crept in unaware and were amongst us. And they're trying to lead you back out of that. All right, everybody following? Let's go back. 23.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 23. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in.
That's what we just read about, what the apostles were telling Paul. Read on.
For God is able to graft them in again.
Yeah, they could be saved. Read on.
For if thou wert cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature.
When were they cut out the olive tree? In the book of Hosea. That's when they were cut out the olive tree. They were not going to be God's people. Read on.
For if thou were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted in, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree.
And it says, and you was grafted in contrary to nature. You were being grafted back in, Isaiah 65 and 1. Read it. I don't know how you get all nations in this stuff. That don't make no sense to me. What Bible are they reading from? That's it?
Yeah.
Is it one?
Isaiah chapter 65,
Or is it
verse
two?
1. Both.
Go ahead.
I am sought of them that ask not for me.
That's from the northern king. I sought of them that did not ask for me.
I am found of them that sought me not.
Read on.
I said, behold me unto a nation that was not called by my name.
Right, that was the northern kingdom. That's more?
Verse 2.
Read on.
I have spread out my hands all the day unto a rebellious people which walketh in a way that was not good.
Right. He went and delivered those same ones that wasn't calling for him. Northern kingdom wasn't calling for him. They was worshiping Diana and doing whatever they was doing. So let's go back. I don't want to make that too long. I want to help you get through this.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 24. For if thou were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to the nature into a good olive tree.
And you being grafted back in because God promised that. That was Isaiah 65. Read on.
how much more shall these, which be the natural branches, be grafted into their own olive tree?
Right, they're the natural branches because they were keeping the laws.
Right.
They were the natural branches. They had the advantage. So what he's trying to do, he's trying to bust a bubble. Don't get too high-minded. That's why it says, charity envieth not. Charity does not puff up itself in Corinthians, right into those Gentiles. And he also said, knowledge puffeth. Corinthians, I forgot. Where it says, knowledge puffeth up? Say louder. Thank you. Because they got this knowledge, it became puffed up now. Read on.
Verse 25. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in.
And I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery. Read on. That verse again. That you should be ignorant of this mystery.
Verse
25.
Verse 25.
Read it.
For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits.
Lest you should be wise in your own conceits.
That blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in.
So I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery. What is the mystery? Lest thou shalt be wise in thy own conceit. That blindness happened in part
to Israel.
To who?
To Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in.
So he says, don't be ignorant that blindness happened in part. So the purpose was for the rest of the tribes of Israel to be grafted back in. There was a mystery that you were going, the mystery is that they could be saved. It was blinded from their eyes for a long time. That's why John 4 says what it says. I don't want to read it, but about the woman in Samaria, they said, you Jews don't have dealings with us. It was a mystery to many of us that those northern kingdom could be saved. But it happened in part for the purpose of grafting them back in. 26.
Verse 26. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written.
So what?
So all Israel shall be saved.
All the 12 tribes of Israel are going to have the opportunity of salvation. Read on.
As it is written, there shall come out of Sion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob.
Where's that at? Isaiah 59, right? What verse is that in Isaiah 59? I didn't write this down. I'm sorry. Quote it again, 59 and what? 20. Let me see before you read it. 59 and 20. Yeah, read it.
Isaiah chapter 59 and verse 20. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith the Lord. Mm-hmm. And as for me, this is my covenant with them, saith the Lord. My spirit that is upon thee, and my words which I have put in thy mouth, shall not depart out of thy mouth, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seed's seed, saith the Lord, from henceforth and forever.
Right. So it was always going to be. That's why, help me, Romans, read that again. Wow, look, just read that same two verses. Not yet. Let me get to Romans. I got to find it real quick. What's the wording I'm looking for? Damn. No. Yeah, read what you just read again. Just give me a second. I found it. Yeah, read it.
Isaiah.
The last verse. 59.
Isaiah chapter 59, verse 21. As for me, this is my covenant with them, saith the Lord. My spirit that is upon thee, and my words which I have put in thy mouth, shall not depart out of thy mouth, nor out of thy mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seed's seed, saith the Lord, from henceforth and forever.
So he says their word was going to always be in them, right? But they went off. Go to the book of Romans. Romans chapter 2. Romans 2, verse 14.
Romans chapter 2, verse 14. For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these having not the law are a law unto themselves.
Look what it says. It says, for the Gentiles, which have not the law, but do the things that are contained in the law, having not the law, are law unto themselves. Read on.
Which shew the work of the law, written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts, the meanwhile accusing or else excusing one another.
Okay, so what he's saying is that the Spirit was going to be on some of them to do these laws without really even knowing it. That's what we're reading about right there, that he's going to put it in them. There's a remnant that's always going to trigger back. Like today, before I came to this truth, there's certain things that I just didn't do that was unlawful. I didn't know it was unlawful, but I didn't do it. I wasn't a murderer. I always felt it was bad. I just couldn't become a murderer. I was a fornicator, but I wasn't a homosexual. I was a thief. I was an idolater. I was a lot of stuff. Damn. Lord have mercy on me. But there were certain things that you just knew was taboo. You just didn't do. You understand that? There's something. And then when the laws came out, it started clicking off in your mind. Now you start dead in the other stuff inside of you. All right? Let's go back. I want to finish this class. What time is it? Bishop's up soon. Damn. How many more? What's... Now let's go.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 27. For this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes. But as touching the election, they are beloved for their father's sake.
Right, they're your enemies for your sake, so you can repent. But as touching what?
As touching the election, they are beloved for the father's sake.
But as they're part of the elect for the father's sake. Read on.
For the gifts and calling of God are without repentance.
Read on.
For as ye in times past have not
Let me
believed
explain
God.
it. For the gifts and the calling of God are without repentance. The gift and the calling of God, the gift was this opportunity, and the calling of God was without repentance. Meaning you didn't repent for it. He just gave it to you. You didn't earn it to have this opportunity. It was by his mercy we have it. Read on.
Verse 30. For as ye in times past have not believed God, yet have now obtained mercy through their unbelief.
Yeah, we obtained mercy through our unbelief. I could tell you something. When I first heard this truth, and I wasn't looking for God. That was the last thing on my mind. Somebody talking about Christ was black and, you got to grow your beard. I'm like, whatever. I'm not trying to hear that stuff. What they be talking about. That was not in my mind. It wasn't until he said something about he that leaves in captivity shall go into captivity. I'm like, that sounds good. I'm like, but what about for God to love the world? Nah, that ain't true. I'm telling you, you're going to rule over the nations. You have multiple what? Wait, you said multiple what? In the kingdom? So you're going to say I have more than one wave? Oh, where's that at? Where's that in the Bible? Let me get a highlighter. I wasn't looking for God. God, whatever reason he chose to show me mercy, that he showed it. Thank you. Because it wasn't by no works. Read on.
Verse 31. Even so have these also now not believed, that through your mercy they also may obtain mercy.
Read.
For God hath concluded them all in unbelief.
God concluded ain't none of us right. So none of us supposed to be boasting against the other. None of us deserve it. Read on.
That he might have mercy upon all. Oh, the depth of the riches, both of wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding out.
So here's a point. I want to say this real quick. I hope you all can grasp what I'm about to say. Oh, the depths of the riches both of wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments. This is what it says. His judgments are unsearchable, and his ways past finding out. I'm going to say this now. We better not play with God, because he will line your black backsides up. He's merciful. His riches and mercies, the depths are incredible, because we don't deserve it. But know one thing, his punishments are the same way. He will line you up. You think you're getting away with it. You think God is just saying, dummy, I got you. I got you. You think you're planning, I'm going to go over there and they're not going to see me. I'm going to pull up here. I'm going to get another cell phone. I'm going to go pick up this chick. She's going to give me head while we're driving. And then you're going to crash, and she's going to have your rod in her mouth. And they're going to, news camera's going to be there with your fringes bloody, and you're laying there. Telling you. Yep, telling you. This how you play around with God. There's always a way. You think you'll get away? Read that verse again.
Verse 33. Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding out.
So, damn, it took all that tragedy that happened to Jerusalem to fall, the whole city. Romans come and destroy everything. Those that believe fled out on the run. You left everything at home. Ran with your family to the mountains. You had nothing. You didn't take no coat, no nothing. Said, leave it. Don't go back. The only thing you took that was meaningful was this word, the laws of God. And you end up in a new city and you taught what you knew. So we had to fall for Northern Kingdom to rise. And that was Christ's doing. And in that happening, Northern Kingdom rising up, coming back, it was Christ preparing us for that. And in Christ preparing us for that, that's when Judah began to rise back up. And it provoked you to jealousy because now you're seeing these other guys over here understanding scripture. They get the Holy Spirit. He said, well, you had advantage. You had the laws. You ought to be teachers to them. That was supposed to inspire you or ignite you to take back your rightful place. Read on.
Verse 34. For who hath known the mind of the Lord, or who hath been his counselor, or who hath first given to him, and it shall be recompensed unto him again. For of him and through him and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever. Amen.
And of him and through him, and of him, through him, and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever. Amen. Amen. Thank you, God, for everything you've given us, for allowing us into this mercy, for having mercy on us, for destroying us, for the raising up of the other tribes, for letting us the opportunity to be grafted back in. And now that we're being grafted back into this, Northern Kingdom, you have a part of this too. We come together as one nation, 12 and 1.
I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service.
And that's our reasonable service, to give our lives to God, because he chose us and we don't understand the depths of his mercy. All right, I pray you got something from today's class. Giving all praise to the Most High in Christ. IUIC TV.
We used to scream black power while Heron was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission, minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.